Our scripture reading is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. And this is out of the Message Bible. Hear these words. Be especially careful when you are trying to be good, so that you don't make a performance out of it. It might be good theater, but the God who made you won't be applauding. When you do something for someone else, don't call attention to yourself. You've seen them in action, I'm sure. Play actors, I call them, treating prayer, meeting, and street corner alike as a stage, acting compassionate as long as someone is watching, playing to the crowds. They get applause, true, but that's all they get. When you help someone out, don't think about how it looks. Just do it. Quietly and unobtrusively, that is the way your God, who conceived you in love, working behind the scenes, helps you out. And when you come before God, don't turn that into a theatrical production either. All these people making a regular show out of their prayers, hoping for 15 minutes of fame. Do you think God sits in a box seat? Here's what I want you to do. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. Just be there as simply and honestly as you can imagine. The focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense His grace. Tonight we are observing Ash Wednesday, which is the beginning of the 40 days before Easter, where we will all come forward and have ashes placed on our heads in the shape of a cross. When the ashes are placed on our heads, we are reminded that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. The 40 days before Easter is a time of preparing ourselves for the resurrection of Jesus. Fasting is the central spiritual practice that is observed during the season of Lent. And when we think about fasting, we think about what we are giving up, whether it be chocolate or whatever, and it tends to be something negative. But what if we rethought what fasting is all about? What if instead of we thought of it as giving something up, we thought of it as making room for God? What if we thought about it as living into our truest self, the self that the way we were created to be as children of God? During the season of Lent, we will be exploring what it would be like if we slowed down. What if we fasted from hurry, worry, and being busy? We live in a fast-paced culture where people are constantly busy on the move. Have we ever thought about the price that we are paying for being so busy? During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was observed by many commentators that one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is people were allowed to slow down. They were able to spend more time with their kids at home than they would have normally, or with their significant others. But as the restrictions and all of that is beginning to wane, people are beginning to speed back up again, and we are becoming just as busy as we have ever been. Now, ironically, Ash Wednesday falls on the weekend of Ash Wednesday falls on the National Day of Unplugging. So you all got one of these little half sheets that say, I unplug too. Now, the National Day of Unplugging is a group that's gotten together that's committed to spending that weekend or the time of Lent unplugging from whatever electronic And so you're invited to put in here what you're going to do instead of spending that time on your electronic device. So instead of that, I unplug to spend more time with my kids. I unplug to, get more exercise, because everybody always thinks the pastor needs more exercise, right? Eating too many cookies. In 2007, journalist Carl Unhurried gave a TED Talk about his book called In Praise of Slowness. And in the talk, he talks about this culture of busyness in the Western world, and he observes that everything that we do has got to be fast. Instead of just dialing, we speed dial. Instead of just reading, we speed read. Instead of just walking, we speed walk. Instead of and there's even something called speed yoga, where you can go in for 20 minutes and get a quick workout in a hurry. Now, many times individuals don't realize how this busyness affects them until a relationship falls apart or an illness. Unhurried observes that he noticed a difference. The light bulb came on for him in his relationship with his son, that he needed to slow down. One of the things that he just dreaded doing was telling his son's bedtime stories. And so he would want to speed up to get through the story as fast as possible. And his son, of course, who had heard this story before, would say, well, Dad, what about the dwarf or the elf that you left out? And it was when he caught this book in the bookstore that was called The 1 Minute Bedtime Story. Because he really was just stuck in this addiction to speed and being fast. But it was also at that time that the light bulbs came in, and he realized, do I really want to slough off my time that I'm spending with my son just because I can't slow down? So it was at that moment that he realized that things needed to change. So he first thought about, how is it that we got to be this way, of being so fast? And one of the observations he makes is how we think about time. In the Eastern culture and in other cultures, time is cyclical. It's like a circle. We rest, we renew, and rejuvenate. In the Western world, time is linear. So it is a limited resource. Benjamin Franklin said, time is money. It's short. We need to speed up and get as much in our time as we possibly can. So that was one of the reasons why in this culture, it just seems to be something that's always there and prevalent. But he notes that there is a backlash that's been going on, and it's called the slowness movement, where people have been celebrating and trying to embrace what he calls their inner tortoise, being slow. Even when we think about that, we have a prejudice, don't we, against slowness, because when we use that phrase to say, well, he's slow. And the right way that we should think about it is they're fast, they're busy. That's a prejudice we have. And so the slowness movement has brought about the slow food eating movement that encourages people to eat their food slowly, organic farming, and other things as well. Researchers have found that when people do slow down, they eat better, they exercise better, and they live better lives. In our scripture reading, Jesus is criticizing the religious authorities about how they are practicing their faith. He is not criticizing the practices, he is criticizing how they are being done. How are they being carried out? Are they being carried out in an intentional, life-affirming way? His problem, I think, with the religious leaders of his day, the scribes and the Pharisees, is they were all about working. The people needed to work for their salvation. Whereas this is grace, because we are basically doing what we were created to do and be. So each one of you were given a slip of paper when you first came into the sanctuary. And on that paper, you're invited to write down what are some ways that you will slow down or like to slow down during this Lenten season. And then up front, I have what is called the God box. And on top of the God box is the Serenity Prayer. And for those of you not familiar with the Serenity Prayer, it was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, who was a UCC clergy and pastor from the German evangelical part of the UCC. And it's a short prayer. It goes like this. God, give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. And you'll be invited to bring those up and put those in the box when you come up for your ashes. And then next year, maybe we could burn those along with the palms. God isn't looking for us to perform. We do not have to earn God's love. As you come forward to receive your ashes, remember that you come forward just as you are, and that all you need to do is live as God has created you to live. God created and God rested, just as we do or should do the same. Let us simply and honestly be present during this Lenten season, and may we begin by repenting or turning around, which is what repenting means, from unrealistic expectations and false beliefs. Amen.